Yeah, obviously I don't think this topic's going anywhere. I think it's going to generate constant questions, so I'm just going to compress all the info into one video, and you guys can tell people about this. If they ask any questions, you can just direct them here. But first of all, guys, and this isn't directed at you guys in chat, I've not seen anything tonight, but I've seen it all over the place. Like, people have got to stop the personal insults just because someone disagrees with you about a video game, like especially a situation like this. Like, people are discussing online which run was better, Team Queso or Cloud9, and people are getting so heated that they're throwing around personal insults. I'm like, why is that happening? How are people so invested in this to throw around personal insults, particularly to teammates? Like, you've got to leave teammates alone. This is ridiculous. Like, why are people so upset at teammates? He generates really interesting discussion. He's a total gem in the community. Everyone that works with him loves working with him, and he's just an all-around awesome person. Like, if you're getting annoyed at teammates' takes on this topic, then you need to chill. You're way too invested. You need to just like lower, I don't know, the level of I don't know. You go just lower the level in which you care a little bit, and then you can actually enjoy the content and you can enjoy the discussion for what it is. It's a discussion. It's just it's an interesting topic. It's a side topic. Like, it all stemmed from teammates asking me on my stream, which run do I think was better, and I said, I think the Queso run, and that was it. It was just a side topic. Random question came up on my stream. We had no idea it was going to generate this much discussion, but that's the awesome thing about when we get teammates on my stream is, these discussions happen, and the other guys as well, CJ, Roldays, Yummy, like, these discussions happen all the time. They're just really interesting because everybody's so passionate about their takes, and everybody just will die on so many hills. I don't know, I find it interesting, and I hope that you guys can as well. But people got to stop with the personal insults, and people got to stop with the using, just because you disagree with somebody, it's not an excuse to try and like make fun of them either personally or like trying to tear them down as even as not an influencer, as a content creator and as a caster or an analyst. People, like, just as soon as they disagree with something, they think, okay, I disagree, and now is my time to tell everybody why I don't like this person. Like, no, get out of here with that. Just like chill. If it annoys you, if the content annoys you that much, turn off the stream, turn off the video, go do something that doesn't annoy you. So that's really the biggest takeaway for me here, is people need to calm down and stop, like, I don't know, stop being weird. But there are lots of you, and I know that lots of people in the Rocket League community who aren't here right now watching the stream, who do enjoy like discussing like this and can just have a good time sharing their opinions and hearing what other people think. And then moving on with their lives. So for those people, let's talk about why this was such a controversial topic. So outside of the initial stream where when the discussion actually happened, T-Bates tweeted, he wanted to know Twitter's opinion, so he tweeted, which run was more impressive, Cloud9 Season 6, Team Queso season, the LA Major that just happened. And the word that he used was impressive, which seemed to confuse a lot of people, because some people interpreted the word impressive to mean I'll type it all down because I know there's probably going to be too much to remember at a time here. But yeah, some people thought that the word impressive means so hard to accomplish. Some people thought it meant like memorable, so more memorable, and some people thought it meant, there's a lot of people who all they wanted to talk about is historical significance. So yeah, historically significant. These are the three different things that people understood from more impressive. What's harder to accomplish, more memorable, or historically significant. But I don't really think two of these are even up for discussion at all, and I don't think that the two of these were ever up for discussion, and it's the last two. I don't think anybody is ever arguing that Queso's run is more memorable or historically significant. I've spelt it wrong, doesn't matter, you guys know what I mean. History alley, yep, very, very good, good job by me. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. Nobody's saying, or nobody in the right mind is saying that the Queso's run is more memorable or historically significant than Team Queso's. So if that's what you understood from more impressive, then good news for you. Actually, nobody was ever arguing that, so we're all in agreement. The only thing that seems to be up for debate, in my opinion, is which run was harder to accomplish? Which run was a more difficult thing to do? The Team Queso run in the LA Major or the Cloud9 run in Season 6? That's the only thing that's up for debate when we're talking in this context. Now, the biggest argument, or the most common argument that I see people coming up with to back Cloud9's run being harder to accomplish is that they won the last series. So Cloud9 won the last series. That seems to be the be-all and end-all for a lot of people. A lot of people are saying Cloud9 won the last series, the end. That's all that matters. And I would agree that if all else was equal, that would be the only determining factor. That would be the only thing that you would need to know. If all else was the same, then the fact that Cloud9 won the last series and Queso didn't would be the only thing that matters. However, I would argue, and I think everybody would agree, that actually nothing else, almost nothing else was equal in this discussion. Therefore, we have to discuss the other elements as well beyond who won the last series. This is a very important point in Cloud9's favor, but I don't think it's the only point at all. And that brings the other it actually ties in quite nicely with the MVP discussion of the LA Major. A lot of people seem to think that you can't be the MVP of an event like the LA Major unless you win the whole event. So a lot of people said Rise was MVP because he was the best player in the entire tournament, and a lot of other people say no, Atomic was the MVP because he was the best player on G2 who won the tournament. So it all depends on what you actually think the MVP is. Like, do you think the MVP is the best player in the tournament, or do you think the MVP is the best player on the best team in the tournament? Some people think it's the latter. I don't. I think it's the former. I think you can be the MVP even if you lose a tournament. And I think that in team games like Rocket League, the best player can often be on the losing team. The best player on the pitch can very often be on the losing team, in my opinion. So applying that same logic to this discussion regarding Cloud9's run versus Team Queso's run, I would argue that you don't need to win the very last series in order to have the best run. But whether or not Queso's run was impressive enough in other areas to outweigh Cloud9 winning the last series, that's up to you to decide. And yeah, 33% of people seem to think it is. 67% of people seem to think it's not. But my main point here is you got to look beyond just the simple fact that Cloud9 won and Queso didn't. This discussion, I think, is so much deeper than that. And if people aren't willing to go deeper than that, then I really think they're missing out on like appreciating Queso's run in its full value, and even Cloud9's run in its full value. If you only look at who won the last series and that's all you think it matters, then I think you're kind of limiting your own appreciation as well. It's not just about that. So on top of that, the second most important thing, I don't want to echo below, by the way, what I just said. I think that is a point in Cloud9's favor. They won the last series. Yes, one point to Cloud9. But okay, second point for Cloud9, and I think this is probably the second most common argument that I'd see, is that Dig are the GOATs. So Dig are the GOATs and Cloud9 beat the GOATs. And therefore, Cloud9's run cannot be matched by Queso because Queso didn't beat the GOATs and Cloud9 did beat the GOATs. That's a very, very common argument I've seen. And, you know, it's a sensible argument as well. Because Dig were the GOATs. Well, they are. I think Dig are the greatest team. Unless you're T-Bates, who thinks Cloud9 is the greatest team of all time, then you probably agree that Dignitas are the greatest team of all time and Cloud9 beat them twice. So that's definitely another point in Cloud9's favor. But during my review of the Grand Final the other day, I highlighted several Dignitas on 4 starters, and chat seemed to agree that Dignitas were not playing very well for them. Definitely not playing up to their best or near to it, in my opinion. And I think that matters. Now, if you enjoy watching that kind of VOD review content, you'll probably be interested to know that T-Bates also did a VOD review of the Grand Final, just like the one I did. Really, really interesting stuff. I watched it on the VOD. I definitely suggest you check it out if you like that kind of content. Go and support his channel, give him a follow. Now, he said something to the effect of, and obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something to the effect of, in his VOD review, that he doesn't want to think about the possibility that Dignitas were having a bad day because it makes Cloud9's achievement worse. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to that effect. That he doesn't want to imagine that Dignitas, or doesn't even want to entertain the idea that Dignitas weren't playing well, because it makes Cloud9's achievement worse. But unfortunately, in my opinion, it actually matters. How well Dignitas are playing actually matters. And I think Dignitas were having an off day. Cloud9 forced a lot of mistakes. Cloud9 played well, but there were lots of uncharacteristic unforced errors from Dignitas leading to Cloud9 goals and to Dignitas misses, and you can't just ignore that because it fits the story better. You know, you can't. I don't think you can ignore that just because it, you know, makes you happier inside. Yeah, I can't ignore that personally. You know, I have to look at how the teams are playing, and if I look at the opponents Queso played, teams like Furia, G2, Space Station Gaming, FaZe, these are all teams, even NRG actually in round 1, I think that these teams played a lot closer to their actual peak ability than Dignitas did versus Cloud9, and a lot of other teams did versus Cloud9 as well. I don't think NRG played that well against Cloud9 compared to their peak ability in Season 6. But yeah, that across the board, I think Queso's opponents on average played a lot closer to their peak ability than Cloud9's opponents did. Cloud9 played very, very well, but you can't just ignore the fact that Dig played bad because it suits your argument. But yeah, you guys can go watch. Again, this is subjective as well. You have to go watch the series. I'd advise you to watch Season 5, Dignitas versus NRG as well, because that was a really good series from Dignitas where they were really passing the ball well, they were defending well, they were rotating well, they looked on point mechanically, and they looked a lot more like the Dignitas you expect to see when Dignitas played. Dignitas in Vegas, that was not the Dignitas that you expect to see when Dignitas are on the field, if you knew what this team would usually do to their opponents. But okay, that's the second point that people like to make as well. Dig are the GOATs, and therefore Cloud9's run is unmatchable. My response to that would be, well, actually, if the GOATs don't play very well, then maybe you can match it. Okay, third main point that I see a lot of people saying in Cloud9's favor is that C9 changed the meta. A lot of people seem to think that Cloud9's Season 6 win changed the meta of Rocket League forever. Because I don't actually know specifically what people are referring to, but I think based on watching it myself, they did a couple of flip resets, they air rolled, and they demoed a lot. And you know, maybe one of those things stuck around in the meta, or stuck around in high level Rocket League after Cloud9's win, and therefore people say, well, Cloud9 they did that, therefore they changed the meta forever. But my confusion with this is that if Cloud9 changed the meta, then why did Vitality win Season 7 with the same old K-Dot playstyle? K-Dot just left Dignitas, he joined Vitality, still didn't air roll, and they won Season 7. Like, there was lots of LANs. Like, We Dem Girls beat Cloud9 the very next LAN, just I think a couple of weeks or 3 weeks after Vegas. They didn't do anything different either. They just did the same We Dem Girls playstyle, or is it TSM by then? Okay, I think it was still We Dem Girls. Nobody really changed what they were doing in the short term, or even in the next 6 months. Vitality are still doing Vitality. We Dem Girls are still doing We Dem Girls. I don't know, nobody really changed anything significantly. I think the biggest meta change was when a lot of teams with a much heavier bump playstyle, not just a little bit of bumps here and there, but a ton of bumps, came out in North America, and that was the big NA meta change. But from season, I'd say probably Season 4, maybe not, maybe 4. 4 was around about when mechanics started to actually look pretty clean. Even Season 3 for some players like Devo, but yeah, Season 4 was a lot. It was Cloud9's debut. It was some method guys playing very aerial redirecty. Yeah, I don't really see meta changing much between Season 4 and Season 7. But Season 8 was definitely quite a lot different in my opinion. But anyway, that's all well and good. But the main counter I have to this argument, I could talk about it all day because it's just interesting to me, but the main counter to that argument is, what is changing the meta got to do with which run was more impressive anyway? What is changing the meta got to do with which run was harder to accomplish? I think it's not got anything to do with the core discussion at hand. The core discussion is we're talking about which run was harder to accomplish, which run was more impressive, whichever way you want to call it, which run was better. I don't think changing the meta's got anything to do with that. That kind of falls in the category of what was more memorable or what was more historically significant, not what was harder to accomplish. So, bit of a distraction, I'd say. Bit of a distraction. Not an. I think it's an inaccurate statement, and also it's not relevant as well. But okay, let's talk about what I think is relevant for Team Queso. So I will agree that Dignitas, Cloud9 beating Dignitas twice in a row is definitely extremely impressive. The fact that they won the entire tournament, extremely impressive. That's what makes their run so impressive to me. I think it's a super, super impressive run. And I don't want to take anything away from that. What I want to do is highlight to you guys why I find Queso's run to be even more impressive than that. I think Cloud9's run is insane. I think it's like, it's ridiculous that they did that. I'm not trying to like downplay that. I'm trying to overplay. I'm trying to not overplay. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to like show you guys just how good Queso's run is compared to what people realize, because it really was special. So, most importantly for Queso, the teams these days in the open era of Rocket League are just a lot better on average. A lot better on average than the teams in LANs back in the old days of RLCS. By that I mean like the average team at an RLCS LAN now is a lot closer to the best team at that event than the average team back in the day was. The average team back in the day was, a team that the best teams would smash. Whereas now, I mean, the average team at an RLCS LAN, honestly a threat. Like if you took the average team at RLCS in LA, that team's a threat to anybody. Average team in the Vegas LAN, probably not a threat to Dig, probably not a threat to Cloud9, if they're playing as well as they did in this tournament. But besides just the average level being so much higher compared to their peers, I'm not talking about, you take Queso now versus Cloud9 then and you put them in the same lobby. No, I'm saying like, the teams Queso have to play against now are closer to Queso than the teams Cloud9 had to play against then. It's just there's a lot more parity in Rocket League now because of the open system. There are just more really, really good players and really good teams. But on top of that, teams are also much better at bouncing back from losses now, and I would probably attribute that mostly to coaches and timeouts being introduced into the stage games. Timeouts have been very, very effective, helping teams get a foothold in a series if they're just getting smashed. They've been very effective in turning around the momentum or the tide in a series as well. So it's harder to shut a team out now. It's harder to just get a team out of the lobby compared to back then as well. Which does, I think, both of those points, I think, weigh in Queso's favor. Other things I think weigh in Queso's favor, winter split format was significantly harder to run a lower bracket than the old RLCS days as well. So the old RLCS days, the teams, well, the RLCS LANs that used the Season 6 format, actually 3 teams made lower bracket runs to win out of the 4 times that format was used. To the 10-team double elimination format, 3 times out of 4 that this happened, a team won from lower bracket. Northern Gaming did it, Dignitas did it, Cloud9 did it. 3 times out of 4. So actually, lower bracket runs were common. And winning from at the end of a lower bracket run was also common, which, that was one thing that made, when I was there watching Cloud9 against Dignitas in person, I was supporting Cloud9. I was hoping Cloud9 would win. I wanted to see a new champion. And I actually believed, hold on, I think this could happen, because we've seen it before. We've seen it from Northern Gaming, we've seen it from Flipside, did it in Season 2, we've seen it from Dignitas just last season. I think they've got a shot here. I was a believer. And, when they started winning, I was like, they look like they're just going to win. They're actually just winning 2-3-0 in the first series, and already it looks like they've got unstoppable momentum, because it was just a done thing back then to win games, win tournaments from the lower bracket. Nowadays, I mean, we said this the other day, but for all the new people in chat who weren't here the other day, how many times out of the 25 winter split tournaments that happened this season, how many out of the 25 do you think a team made a lower bracket run and then won the tournament? Out of 25 across all regions in the world. Yeah, a couple of people in chat know the answer. It was 2 times. Only 2 times did somebody make a lower bracket run. That means winning more than once in the lower bracket and then winning the tournament. There were 2 other times where a team would go immediately down to the lower bracket and then bounce back from the upper finals. Yeah, only 2 times making a big run like that. It's just super, super hard. This format's brutal. It's a really, really brutal format. If you're in the lower bracket, it's very hard. I mean, it's statistically more impressive that Queso did what they did than Cloud9 did what they did. Just because you look at how many times people did what Cloud9 did, win in the RLCS format from the lower bracket, happened quite a lot. And you look at how many times it happened in the winter split, it was super rare. It's ridiculously rare. Like teams in the teams coming out of groups first place, upper bracket, were winning almost every time. So that definitely weighs in Queso's favor as well. You have to look at the formats, and you have to look at not just the actual series format, but also how many best of sevens there were in the season 6. It was only best of 7 for the lower final and the grand final, whereas Queso, they started best of 7s in lower quarters and lower semis and lower final. They were doing more best of 7s, playing way more games. In fact, Queso had already played as many games as Cloud9 played on the entire last day of the Vegas LAN before the second series, the G2 even started. So when Queso won that game 7 in the first series against G2, they'd already played as many games as Cloud9 played on the last day of LAN Vegas. It's just a brutal format. So you've got to give props to Queso for that. But there's also other intangibles as well. You've got to you've got to give props to Queso for being on the other side of the world, 8-hour time zone travel just to play their debut LAN. And some people say the crowd being against them weighs in their favor as well. The fact that they're able to do well with the crowd being against them also weighs in their favor. I don't really think the crowd made that much of an impact, but that was more down to the fact that the sound cancelling headphones were really, really good. And there were a few people in the audience making noise for Queso, so it wasn't like they were, I don't know, the crowd wasn't savage by any means. They weren't like booing them, throwing like fruit at them or whatever. They weren't being overly mean. So I don't think the crowd thing really matters too much, but you do have to give them props for it being their debut LAN. Cloud9 were not only LAN veterans, they were former LAN champions, and the LAN that they'd won before Season 6 was also against Dignitas in the grand final. They'd beaten Dignitas in the grand final before, so yeah, a lot of things in Queso's favor. A lot of things. I think for Cloud9, the fact that it was a world championship, I mean, that's up to you to decide. Do you think Worlds is more prestigious than a major these days? I guess it depends what way you look at it. World Championship gives you an actual world champion title in game, and you are the champion at the culmination at the end of a season. Seasons back then were only 6 months, so now it's 12 months. So majors being as stacked as they are in the open format, I think they're kind of like on that level or maybe even above. And that's just, again, my opinion. If you think the fact it was Worlds makes it better for Cloud9, I could definitely see your logic there. And yeah, they beat the GOATs Dig and they actually won the tournament. That's your arguments for your main things for Cloud9. It was Worlds, Dig were the GOATs, they beat them twice and won the whole thing. But Queso, they did it in a much, much more brutal lineup of teams. They played more games. It was their debut LAN. It's ridiculously hard to do it in the format they did it in. And yeah, there's also the level of play thing. There's a level of play today is much higher. I don't really think that matters too much personally. The crowd and the level of play, I kind of I'll downplay those because I don't think those two things really matter. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Queso's favor as well, and you've got to acknowledge that. You have to look at all of those things. If we, stopped Queso as soon as they've played as many games as Cloud9 played on the last day of Vegas, then their last game would have been the Game 7 win in the first series against G2. They had to go play a whole other best of 7, more than Cloud9. But yeah, Dignitas, I think, the main reason for me is that I just look back on this, and I was there, I've watched it so many times. I remember watching it live thinking, immediately at the very start of the series at Cloud9 Dig, I was like, wait, Dig look beatable today. Dig are not putting it together. They're whiffing. They're missing completely free goals. They're giving away so many goals with bad positioning and bad defense, bad 50-50s. So yeah, when I watched it live, I was thinking, actually, I think Dig are not looking too good. I think Cloud9 can beat them here. Yeah, Torment played unbelievably well, so they ran all over them. I mean, do you guys really think that Cloud9 were just that much better? That Dignitas, anyone who thinks that Dignitas played their best Rocket League of all time, which I've heard some people say this, and I'm not just talking random commenters on Reddit. I've heard some known people in the Rocket League community say that they think the Season 6 World Championship was the highest level of Rocket League that had ever happened, which I couldn't disagree with more. I don't think it was even close. I don't think it was even close to the highest level of Rocket League at the time that had ever happened. It was really, really, like, it was nowhere near Dignitas best anyway. I think it was peak Torment, but it was just another day for Squishy and Gimmick. They were doing what they did in that grand final most of the time. And for Dig, K-Dot's passing showed up. Literally, like, Panda Turbo didn't do like, they weren't at their usual level in any aspect of the game. And besides K-Dot's passing, he couldn't shoot, he couldn't save, he couldn't position. Like, Dig they were all over the place. Like, I can't understand when people say that it was peak Rocket League. It just wasn't. Whereas you look at Queso G2 and you think, actually, that might be the highest level series we've ever seen. It might be. You know, you have to probably do a lot of VOD review before you can come to that conclusion confidently, but yeah, the teams that Queso were playing, SSG played unbelievably well. Furia played unbelievably well. NRG played them really, really well. I don't think EG even played too badly, but Queso still destroyed them. They destroyed FaZe, and FaZe were not playing too badly either. Yeah, I don't know, the teams that Queso went through, and the fact they just kept doing it again and again, destructive game 5s, game 6, 7s. That's why I think it's the most impressive run. I don't know, I'm just more impressed that they were able to do that. And if we rewind time, and a team had to go from Queso's position to do what Queso did, I'd be less confident in that happening than somebody making Cloud9's run. Simply, that's my opinion. And you know, if you disagree, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to that as well. But bear in mind, like I said at the start, it's just a very interesting discussion in my opinion. At the end of the day, not that important. You know, you're probably never going to hear this discussion again from me, because the whole purpose of me getting all my thoughts and summarizing the entire thing is so that I don't have to talk about this again on stream, because I'd rather point people to the time I did talk about it and address every, like, I think I've addressed everything. If there's anything else, type it in chat right now, but I'm pretty sure I talked about all of the different arguments that people have made for G2, not G2, Cloud9, and I've talked about all of the main arguments that myself and others are making for Team Queso, and now you guys can make your own decision, and hopefully we can be amicable about the whole thing. Oh yeah, there was one other thing actually. So some people say it's like another EU versus NA thing. I don't really see how this is EU or NA related at all. It didn't stem from EU versus NA. It came from a totally different subject on a stream that we weren't even talking about EU versus NA at all, pretty much. So the actual origin of this discussion has nothing to do with EU versus NA. And if you look at the achievement, okay, yes, Queso's an EU team and Cloud9's an NA team, but Cloud9 beat a bunch of EU teams and Queso beat a bunch of NA teams. So if Queso's run is better, then that makes NA look good by proxy. And if Cloud9's run is better, that makes EU look good by proxy. So really, it's no more or less, you know, EU favored or NA favored to have either opinion. Both opinions have EU pro, NA pro, or, you know, they have pro angles for both regions. So it's not an EU NA thing. It definitely isn't an EU NA thing.